many other... This is great.
Hello there, a warm welcome to WION, broadcasting live from the British capital this hour in London. You're with me, Katie Pilbeam. Let's get to the headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to chair a high-level meeting to review the situation relating to India's in Sudan. Nearly 3,000 Indians are reportedly stranded since the clashes broke out in the North African nation. Heavy gunfire and explosions continue in Sudan despite calls for a ceasefire to mark the Eid al-Fitr. The country's top general releases a video message saying the military remains committed to a transition to civilian rule. Those who play with fire on Taiwan will eventually get themselves burned, says China's foreign minister, warning of dangerous consequences of criticizing China over Taiwan. Muslims celebrate Eid al-Fitr around the world after 1 month of Ramadan. Some countries in South Asia to celebrate Eid on Saturday. Reigning NBA champions Golden State Warriors finally get their act together to beat the Sacramento Kings and cut the series deficit to 2-1 in the playoffs. First to our top story this hour. A Russian warplane fired a weapon in the city of Belgorod near Ukraine. Well, this caused a large blast which damaged the nearby buildings. According to Russian news agency TASS, the Sukhoi Su-34 Air Force plane was flying over the city and there was an accidental discharge of ammunition. However, the Russian Defense Ministry did not specify the kind of weapon used. Well, the visuals from the location show a large crater measuring around 20 meters. Well, according to the regional governor, the incident left 2 women injured. Russian defense authorities say a probe is underway. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, authorities there are preparing for a counter-offensive. The Ukraine Defense Contact Group is expected to hold a meeting later on today where Ukraine and allies are going to discuss the further stages of war. With Ukraine Contact Group is an alliance of 54 countries with 30 NATO members and 24 other nations. Since Russia's invasion, the group is supporting Ukraine by sending military equipment. Ukraine is already holding drills with 40,000 soldiers that it wants to use during this counteroffensive. The soldiers, they're distributed into 8 brigades known as Storm brigades. Well, the units, they're formed through an aggressive recruitment campaign on social media. The step comes as Ukraine faces challenges of recruiting new troops. Well, the new brigades will fight alongside regular army units boosted by new Western battle tanks and thousands of fresh troops trained by allied armies as well outside Ukraine in UK and US. Last year, Ukraine was successful to liberate parts of Kherson region and the Kherson city itself. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has already vowed to win back every inch of Ukraine's land. Experts are predicting a tough counter-offensive as Russia is expected to depend on the leaked US documents and the Wagner troops as well.
Нам світло саме перше.
Да, ми
Світло.
чули, що до світла всі будуть працювати.
UK Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab's political career hangs in the balance. The investigation on Raab's ministerial contact during his previous roles is now concluded. And now the decision of Raab's future in the UK government lies with the UK Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Well, according to sources, the report on the findings of the probe was handed to Number 10 on Thursday morning. And Sunak has spent hours carefully considering his conclusions. Well, according to British media reports, Dominic Raab has seen the full report of Adam Tolley KC. The senior lawyer was responsible for investigating complaints into Raab's behaviour from several civil servants. This was all when he was serving as the Foreign Secretary and the Secretary of Justice. Well, Raab has denied every allegation, while adding that if the report finds him guilty, he will resign from his position. Well, dozens of people have given evidence to the inquiry. Several colleagues of Raab who are not part of the investigation say that he even made a member of staff cry. Meanwhile, the Labour Party took the opportunity to criticise Sunak for another delay, as the Labour accused the Prime Minister of hesitation after senior figures are told to expect a decision the same day, while adding that if Raab is a bully, he should resign. On the other hand, Transport Secretary Mark Harper says that it is reasonable for the Prime Minister to take as much time as necessary to make a decision. Well, let's talk to Nicholas now and find out what he thinks, senior journalist and former BBC editor. A very good day to you, Nicholas. So we're all dying to know if Dominic Raab is indeed a bully or not. Do you think Rishi Sunak is right to take his time to go over all of the details of the report?
Well, the tension is rising, of course, the longer it takes for him to make a decision. I think we're at a very interesting juncture in British politics because Rishi Sunak came in promising integrity in government after the Johnson years when integrity seemed to be lacking. So it's make or break for Rishi Sunak. Well, I'm not saying he's going to fall on this issue, but he is under an enormous amount of pressure to make the right decision here. Nobody knows what's in the report, except that it's comprehensive, it's thorough. The report was to examine the facts, not to make a judgment. Making the judgment is left to the Prime Minister. But certainly public opinion, which is not always right, of course, but public opinion has already made its mind up that Raab is a bully. The stories have been coming out for too long. So public opinion really is forcing the Prime Minister to make a decision. And if I were to put money on it, I would say that Dominic Raab will be out of a job by the end of today. But I may be wrong. And Rishi Sunak might decide that the man he trusted from the moment he became Prime Minister, trusted enough to make Deputy Prime Minister, is going to stay. So Rishi Sunak's in a very difficult spot. His popularity is already suffering. I'm talking about the Prime Minister's popularity now, not least because of a mini scandal last week when it seemed that one of the budgetary measures introduced last month will benefit a company in which his wife is an investor. He should have declared that. He didn't declare it in advance. So the knives are a little bit out for Rishi Sunak in that regard. But I think we have, as I say, an interesting juncture in British politics in that public opinion is actually pressurizing the Prime Minister. And not only that, but another ingredient is the rumour, it's only a rumour, that if Dominic Raab is acquitted or allowed to stay on in his job, there will be senior civil service resignations. So Rishi Sunak's facing all those interesting things. Something will happen by the end of today, and as I've already hedged my bet, I would suggest it is that we will have a new Justice Secretary and Dominic Raab will be out of government. But I may be wrong. We can only speculate.
Indeed we can. As you say, an interesting juncture there for Rishi Sunak, and indeed politics here in the UK. As always, never a dull moment. Nicholas Nugent, thank you so much indeed. Senior journalist and former BBC editor here on WION Today from London. The UK is preparing for King Charles III's coronation, but the big day is likely to be met with some disruption as security personnel in Heathrow Airport are planning a strike in May. Well, the coronation of Charles will take place at Westminster Abbey on the 6th of May, and the strikes are planned in 3 phases, beginning from May the 4th to May the 6th, also from the 9th to the 10th and the 25th to the 27th. Well, the Unite Trade Union chief says that the dispute is bound to escalate as more workers are voting, which will cause more disruption throughout the summer. The union is staging industrial action across the UK for better working conditions, wages and benefits for its members. Now, earlier at Heathrow Airport, a 10-day walkout by security guards resulted in cancellations of dozens of flights over the Easter period. Heathrow spokesperson said passengers can have confidence for a smooth operation as the airport authorities vow to stop the union from disrupting the flow of visitors to the UK. Well, during an important period as well for the country, that is. Heathrow authorities argue that since January, it's been providing employees with a 10% salary rise, while accusing the union of not sharing the updated offer with its members. Okay, to offer a bit of clarity, we've got our Alex Isaac here from London joining us as always. So there is so much excitement from many people here in the UK about the coronation coming up of Charles III, but this could all be scuppered and ruined potentially.
Sorry, Kate, I didn't hear that last bit of the question, but I did understand that people are definitely excited for the coronation coming up. And of course, they are going to be dismayed that some Heathrow workers will be on strike before and after that coronation. So it looks like there may well be delays coming into the country. But let's not forget that there are other strikes in other countries as well up to the run of the coronation. So if you are flying and you are travelling, then it's definitely best to check on your airline as you go forward. We understand also that staff workers at Terminal 5, they will also be on strike, and that is predominantly British Airways there. So again, always check where you're going. But they're not the only workers that are potentially going to be on strike during that period. There's obviously an ongoing strike at the Passport Control Office, and we also understand that traffic wardens within the London area also will be going on strike during the coronation, although that probably won't be affecting too many people, as it's unlikely they'll be driving through the capital when the coronation hits, as a lot of the roads will be closed off. But the disruption seems to be ongoing for many within the UK. They are still seeing their junior doctors on strike, and nurses are still having to contemplate what their next step is. It all comes down to asking for more money as they're going forward. A lot of the unions are still saying that they want at least like 5% of extra on their wages, and the government is still steadfast that they can't afford it. And especially as inflation hasn't moved as much as was expected. When we heard from the bank last week, it was still in that double figures, and it was expected to come down already by now. So the government still has that on their side, that they are not willing to move on a lot of these demands for extra pay. So it does look like some of these strikes will be ongoing. And I said, if you are going to the coronation and you are planning to travel over, then definitely check with the airlines to make sure that they are still flying.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you, Alex Isaac in London for us. Well, a month after its collapse, the troubles seem to be far from over for Credit Suisse. Well, the company has told a London court during a trial that Credit Suisse has learnt nothing from the 2008 financial crisis. Well, Lawley Financing, a company set up by the German bank IKB, is suing Credit Suisse over its 2007 purchase of $100 million of notes as part of a collateralized debt obligation or CDO transaction. Well, CDOs are an asset class which are blamed for the 2008 financial crisis in the United States. The company said in the court that it bought the notes because of Credit Suisse's false and dishonest representations, they say, about their value. Well, to bolster its arguments, the Lawley lawyer repeatedly referred to Credit Suisse's $5.28 billion settlement with the US Department of Justice, which settled claims that it had misled those who invested in its residential mortgage-backed securities. Well, Lawley's lawyer said Credit Suisse's defence to the lawsuit suggests the bank considers its conduct as acceptable banking practice. However, Credit Suisse argued in the court that the settlement with the US Department of Justice makes no reference to dishonesty, fraud, or misrepresentation. While all this lawsuit, which was filed in 2018, predates Credit Suisse's takeover by its UBS last month, the case underlines the legacy issues facing UBS in taking on Credit Suisse. The Swiss bank has suffered from high-profile risk management failures and a string of losses in its recent years. In March this year, Credit Suisse became the biggest name ensnared by market turmoil unleashed by the collapse of US lenders, Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, forcing the 167-year-old Swiss bank to tap a $54 billion central bank funding package. A Netflix docudrama has sparked outrage among Egyptians over the depiction of Queen Cleopatra as a black African after its trailer dropped last week. Well, an Egyptian lawyer, Mahmoud Al-Semeri, has accused the makers of the series, African Queens it's called, of erasing Egyptian identity in favour of promoting Afrocentrism. Well, Semeri called for blocking Netflix in Egypt as he felt that the show tried to change Egyptian identity through slogans and writings. He also stated that the show includes content that violates the country's media laws. Well, according to archaeologists, Cleopatra was light-skinned, although the identity of Cleopatra's mother continues to remain unknown. She could be an indigenous Egyptian or from some other part of Africa. However, producers of the show continue to defend the choice of casting actor Adele James, stating that her heritage is highly debatable. Well, even the actor herself, James, took to her Twitter to slam those who are criticising her casting. She said, and I'm quoting here, "If you don't like the casting, don't watch the show," unquote. Well, Cleopatra, she was born in the Egyptian city of Alexandria in 69 BC, succeeding her father, Ptolemy VII, in 51 BC, and ruled until her death in 30 BC. Historians say that Queen Cleopatra is co-produced by Hollywood actor Jada Pinkett Smith, so that's Will Smith's wife, as part of the African Queen series, which premieres its first season in February.
My grandmother saying to me, "I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra."
Prince William and Kate Middleton, they caught customers off guard at an Indian restaurant on Thursday. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, they made an unexpected phone booking at the Indian Stretchery in Birmingham. Taking to the kitchen, the two competed in an impromptu roti making competition against each other, where the Duchess was declared the winner.
Good idea.
Some of them coming at 8 o'clock in the morning. Very easy.
Straight out.
Okay, let's get some sport now, shall we? Because Manchester United, their European dreams have been crushed by Sevilla in the quarterfinals of the Europa League. A calamity of errors saw the Red Devils concede 3 goals in the second leg as they lost a high-stakes game 2-5 on aggregate. Well, Erik ten Hag's side could have killed the tie in the first leg, but they blew a 2-goal lead to draw at Old Trafford. United began the return leg as they ended the first by making costly errors. David De Gea played a short pass to Harry Maguire